Right now, one of the most important waterways on Earth is almost silent. Oil tankers are waiting, global markets are nervous, and the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical oil route, is nearly closed. But why is this narrow passage so important to the global economy? The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow stretch of water located between Iran and Oman. It connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean through the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. At its narrowest point, this strategic waterway is only about 33 kilometers wide. But despite its small size, it carries an enormous responsibility. Every day, millions of barrels of oil pass through this route. In fact, roughly 1/5 of the world's total oil supply moves through the Strait of Hormuz. This makes it the most important energy choke point in the world. So what happens when such a critical route suddenly stops? To understand the impact of a closure, we first need to look at how many countries depend on the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is not just important for the Middle East, it is a lifeline for the global energy system. Some of the world's largest oil producers rely on this narrow passage to export their energy to international markets. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Iran ship millions of barrels of oil through this route every single day. But the impact goes far beyond the Gulf. Major economies across Asia depend heavily on this oil. China, India, Japan, and South Korea import large volumes of energy that pass directly through the Strait of Hormuz. This means that any disruption in this narrow waterway can quickly affect economies, industries, and energy prices across the entire world. But how could this narrow waterway actually be shut down? But this is no longer just a theoretical risk. The disruption has already begun. In recent days, commercial vessels moving through the Strait of Hormuz have come under direct attack. Several ships have been struck by projectiles, forcing crews to evacuate and sending shockwaves through global shipping markets. On March 11th, multiple commercial vessels were hit inside the strait, highlighting how quickly this strategic waterway can turn into a conflict zone. Iran has warned that foreign vessels passing through the strait could be considered legitimate targets, dramatically increasing the risks for international shipping. As a result, many tanker companies are now avoiding the route entirely, effectively bringing one of the world's most important energy corridors close to a standstill. So what happens to the global economy if this vital route remains closed? The consequences could be enormous. Every day, roughly 20 million barrels of oil normally pass through the Strait of Hormuz. That is about 1/5 of the world's total oil consumption, making it one of the most critical energy routes on the planet. When such a massive supply route is disrupted, global energy markets react almost immediately. Even a short disruption can push oil prices sharply higher. Analysts warn that prices could surge past $100 per barrel, and in a prolonged crisis even reach $150. In fact, Iranian officials have already warned the world to prepare for oil prices as high as $200 per barrel if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. Such a dramatic increase would have serious consequences far beyond the oil market. Higher energy prices would raise transportation costs, increase fuel prices, and push inflation higher across many countries. The shock would not stop there. Rising energy costs would also drive up food prices and manufacturing expenses, affecting industries and households around the world. But if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed for an extended period, the consequences could go far beyond a temporary energy shock. If the disruption continues, the effects could ripple across the global economy and reshape political dynamics far beyond the Middle East. If that flow remains blocked, the first and most immediate impact would be on Asia, the region most dependent on Gulf energy. Countries like China, India, Japan, and South Korea import massive volumes of oil from the Persian Gulf. A prolonged disruption could threaten energy security, raise industrial costs, and slow economic growth across some of the world's largest economies. For highly industrialized economies such as Japan and South Korea, which import most of their energy, even a temporary supply shock could disrupt manufacturing, shipping, and electricity generation. China and India, the world's fastest growing energy consumers, would also face rising costs and supply uncertainty, potentially affecting everything from transportation to heavy industry. The crisis could also have serious implications for countries like Pakistan, which already struggle with energy shortages and economic instability. Higher oil prices could increase inflation, widen trade deficits, and put additional pressure on national budgets. At the same time, the countries that export oil through the Strait, including Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Bahrain, could face their own economic shock. Even though oil prices might rise, the inability to export large volumes of crude could significantly reduce their revenues. Some alternative pipelines exist, but they cannot fully replace the massive amount of oil that normally moves through this narrow passage. As a result, global supply shortages could persist if the disruption continues. Beyond economics, there is also a serious geopolitical risk. If attacks on shipping and military targets continue, more countries could become involved in the conflict. While a full-scale global war remains unlikely, prolonged confrontation between major powers in such a strategically vital region could increase tensions worldwide and raise fears of a much larger conflict. All of this shows just how much the world depends on a single narrow waterway. The Strait of Hormuz may appear small on the map, but its importance to the global economy is enormous. Every day, the energy needs of major economies from Asia to Europe depend on oil passing through this narrow corridor. When that flow is disrupted, the effects can spread quickly across markets, governments, and entire societies. Whether the current crisis escalates further or moves toward de-escalation will shape not only the future of the Middle East, but also the stability of the global economy. For now, the Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most critical and fragile choke points in the world, a reminder that sometimes the fate of global stability can depend on a passage only a few kilometers wide. And as tensions rise, the world is watching closely, because what happens in this narrow strait could reshape the global balance of power.